Let's jump to the story from Timcast.com. Trump files motion to dismiss January 6th case, citing double jeopardy and First Amendment. This is interesting. Former President Donald Trump has asked the U.S. District Court of Columbia to dismiss special counsel Jack Smith's case against him for his alleged role in the events of January 6th, citing the First Amendment and double jeopardy. Quote, if there is any constant in our democratic system of governance, it is that the marketplace of ideas, not the mandates of government functionaries or partisan prosecutors, determines the scope of public debate, stated Trump's reps in a filing. Countless millions believe, as Trump consistently has and currently does, that fraud and irregularities pervaded the 2020 presidential election. As the indictment itself alleges, President Trump gave voice to those concerns and demanded that politicians in a position to restore integrity to our elections not just talk about the problem, but investigate and solve it. So I think what they're saying, here's a quote. Additionally, as the United States Senate has previously tried and acquitted President Trump for charges arising from the same course of conduct alleged in the indictment, the impeachment and double jeopardy clauses both bar retrial before this court and require dismissal. Is that true?
No, I mean, I'm not the constitutional lawyer. I think on freedom of speech and First Amendment grounds, he should, because if you're not, well, the two-tier system of justice again, right? If you're Nancy Pelosi, Hakeem Jeffries, Hillary Clinton, you can say the election was stolen, the election was rigged, this whole process sucks, I didn't win, wah, wah, wah. And then if you're Donald Trump, you're going to prison. So on that just basis alone, by the way, this judge could not be more corrupt and biased. We can get into that if you want to.
Is that Chipkin?
Yeah, I've literally been before her. But the double jeopardy, here's a really crazy thing about double jeopardy, and I only know this because I paid attention for like 7 seconds in law school to try to pass the bar exam. You can be charged in state and federal court for the exact same thing. It's not double jeopardy. Yeah. You just can't be charged in federal court twice for the same thing.
Or the same state, I'm assuming. Right?
Or the same state.
It can't be the same jurisdiction.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So on double jeopardy grounds, he's good if he's saying, no, this needs to go because you already are alleging this in the South Florida case in Miami. It's got to go. Then he's got a strong point.
So these are both federal then?
These are both federal. This has to do with the Miami, D.C. case.
Right.
And if they're going to bring more charges or not.
Well, in bringing up, it's interesting, impeachment is not the criminal case. The argument is first they would impeach Donald Trump, then convict him. And then after he's convicted, they can file the criminal indictment and seek to convict him on criminal charges.
Where? In Congress? So
the argument as to why Donald Trump can't be criminally charged yet is that he has to be impeached for these things first.
But he's been criminally charged. And
right. So the argument is, I can't remember who wrote this. We covered it several.
Oh, I see the legal gymnastics you're talking about. Like,
well, there's a constitutional argument that you can't criminally charge members of the Trump administration or Trump himself because it's the executive branch. You have to seek impeachment. Argument being, the president has broad leeway in taking actions for the benefit of this country or the direction of this country. And if you believe the president has done wrong by this country, you have to impeach him, which is the statement of, I hereby accuse you of high crimes and misdemeanors. Then the Senate convicts him for doing it. Then, after we all agree the president has broken his oath of office or whatever, you then file criminal charges against him.
That's a pretty good constitutional argument. I mean,
it makes the most sense. Because if that was not the case, any blue state could file criminal charges against the president anytime. It's state charges. Oh, the president committed a crime. What? How are we supposed to have a president if think about the Civil War when the states were upset with Lincoln pre-Civil War and the fears about imagine if Virginia or Alabama was just like, we're criminally charging the president. Well, you couldn't. That was the argument. He has to be impeached, which is the agreement the president has committed high crimes and misdemeanors and then is removed from office more so than just I'll put it this way. If that is not the standard, then there is no president. A single state could challenge the results of an election by criminally charging a president for anything. So you need a federal level impeachment against him before you can try and criminally charge him at a state level.
Well, you're also not supposed to be able to charge him while he's sitting in office. So it's going to be even interesting if he wins 2024. And what are you going to do?
Well, that's exactly the argument they're making, is that the actions they are charging Trump over happened while he was president. In which case,
I agree with that. He should be immune from that prosecution because
until he's convicted in an impeachment trial.
Right then. So totally on board with that because he was in the White House. He was still there saying whatever he was allowed to say, and that's protected. But
I would say this too. The reason why I have nothing but disgust for those lawyers like Jenna Ellis and Sidney Powell is that it is not just a constitutional duty to provide legal counsel to an individual. It is not just a legal duty to provide counsel to someone who is seeking a redress of grievances. It is an obligation for Donald Trump, if he believes the election was stolen, to pursue all legal methods to investigate and seek remedy. That would mean any lawyer who is taking up that job has a duty to this country to make sure that's the case. For Jenna Ellis to have lied in her previous statements that she believed, or that she, in her arguments, for Sidney Powell to have lied or to have flipped now, they are basically saying the fabric of this nation means less to them than their personal comfort.
Yeah, and what you're also saying is that a sitting president, is not entitled to counsel. Is that the precedent we want to set? Is that the historical foundation we want to set because you disagree with him politically, and that decision should be adjudicated at the polls and not in the courts of law? Are we going to now, when President Trump say he wins in 2024, are we going to go back and arrest, based on this DOJ's precedent, every Joe Biden attorney that worked against electing President Donald Trump and provided advice to Joe Biden saying it was okay to take classified documents out of the, when you were vice president and senator? I mean, that's what they want us to do. And I think they don't care because the mainstream media will cover for them and it'll just be Orange Man bad. But it's a two-tier system of justice. They don't care.
Well, the argument is a three-tiered. You've got the people who get away with everything, the regular people that get ignored and never get any attention, and then the people who are arrested for everything. So there are a lot of people who have talked about going to the police for help because of crimes, and they are completely ignored.
That's true. Yeah. Go to D.C.
Is a big reason a lot of this is going on that right now, given the way approval rates are sitting, are they worried that undecided voters who are looking for something different, who are like, look, 4 years have gone by. Maybe you forget a little bit of like a lot of these people who maybe didn't vote for Donald Trump in 2020. 4 years have gone by. Things have gotten bad enough now that maybe they're like, maybe I'm willing to go back to that. Is the idea to keep this in the news, keep him in trial, not just in an actual trial, but the court of public opinion, to keep voters from wanting to swing back and possibly give him a shot this time around, because you keep dirtying him up by keeping him in the news with all these cycles.
Well, that's the hope. Yeah. Look, remember, the Democrats aren't stupid. Yeah. They're evil and they're wicked and they're geniuses at certain points in time when they collaborate together. They don't want Joe Biden to be their candidate. They might not publicly say that, but they're not morons. What they're trying to do is both dirty up Trump and Biden at the same time, and then they're gonna be like, no, we're going after both people. Yep. But they want to give Joe Biden an exit ramp. It's not a coincidence. There are no coincidences in government. Major theme in my book that David Ignatius of the Washington freaking Post comes out and says, "Oh, Joe Biden, you've done so well, but please retire now." That's not a coincidence. That means the FBI and DOJ gave David Ignatius the details of Hunter Biden's criminal case and Joe Biden's criminal case and said, if we don't get this guy out, this is what's coming, and then we're going to indict him. But if we just charge Hunter and we force Daddy Biden to commute his sentence, that's it. Game over. He can't be president.
I think there's a decent probability that Joe Biden gets indicted. For the reasons you just outlined.
They might have to go to that. I'm saying that's their last option.
It's their plausibility shield for middle of the road, uninitiated 100%. Individuals.
They'll go to Merrick Garland, who looks like a wet noodle every time he approaches a microphone. Him and Chris Wray, the worst FBI director in history, will go to the microphone and said, "We charge 2 sitting presidents," or whatever. One former.
We're
president.
Not biased.
We're not biased. Look at this.
Charging Biden too.
We're everybody. Biden's a criminal, and I think
Biden is the sacrificial lamb.
It could come to, I think Hunter's their leverage point. I think they get to that. But here's the thing. They got to figure all this stuff out in the next 90 days. Yeah. Once you get past the Iowa caucuses, they can't airmail in Gavin Newsome, the guy they want to come in to be president.
Technically, if Joe Biden is incapable of running, it's something will happen. I mean, you're right in terms of a primary.
Yeah.
But they'll make it happen. You know what I mean?
But that's what I'm saying. That's why these articles are starting to come out from left-wing organizations. That's not random.
No.
Yeah. The government has called them and said, hey, this is coming. We need you to help us grease the skids. Get rid of this guy. politely, and then we'll glorify him for being the savior from Trump. That's what they will literally write about him for decades to come if this play happens, and half of America will buy it.
That's why I kind of think a medical issue is the more likely out for Joe Biden.
Well, you just have to watch him on TV for like 30 seconds if you want a medical issue.
But how do you get Kamala Harris out of the way? How do you get Joe Biden to not run? And how do you get a Gavin Newsome in? Joe Biden has a medical issue. Gavin Newsome runs out on stage, performs CPR, saves the life of the president. I mean, think about it. And then Kamala Harris assumes the role, acting president for the remainder of the year, but then says,
I really want to take that Senate seat in California. I need to return to my home state.
No. She's going to go take her $10 million payday.
But what she'll say is, I am honored to have served this country as acting president.
I took out Trump with Biden, the greatest victor.
Right. You know? And I believe it is not in the cards for me to pursue an election with such short notice. So I'd like to honor, with honor and humility, offer up Gavin Newsome and ask him to lead this nation. And then you get a Gavin Newsome. That's why Newsom's probably when's he's debating DeSantis
on the 30th,
which is
this month?
November.
For Tater Ron to go in there and accept this debate just shows you the disparity of where these two individuals are.
You want to know my conspiracy theory is?
Yes, I do. But you know what's hilarious for your audience? I go to engagements around the country for Donald Trump all the time. I do big events, whatever. Ron DeSantis should call in for presidency when he could put more people in a room than Kash Patel. I mean, have you seen his events? It's sad.
Here's what I think. A year and a half ago, we were talking about Ron being president. I mean, tons of outlets were having this conversation before Trump announced, before he was back in the game. And there was conversations when Trump was announcing that a Trump DeSantis ticket would be unstoppable. Before DeSantis.
I remember being part of those conversations.
Here's my conspiracy theory. Special interests establishment interests knew that was the case, probably looked at the polling data and says Trump's a wild card that pisses people off, but DeSantis stabilizes his numbers by being that more boring regular politician. We need to make sure they can never form that ticket. So they go to DeSantis, whisper sweet nothings in his ears. And I wondered this. And I say it's a conspiracy theory. I'm not saying I literally believe it's absolute. I'm saying just entertain the interesting thought based on this. If you look at what Ron DeSantis' campaign has been like, your only conclusion could be that he is being sabotaged. Have you seen him wearing the high heels?
Oh, the cowboy boots with the big lifts.
Big lifts is an understatement.
He should have just gone straight to platforms.
The front
American
of the boot is
platforms.
flat and bent, like there's no foot in it. It looks like his foot is pressed up against the front of the boot, and there's a 4-inch lift in them. Now, I'm not saying I know for a fact that's true, but these are the memes that are coming out. You look at how Ashley St. Clair made a joke about it, and Christina Pushaw starts attacking her, and I'm like, are they intentionally nuking? The first thing I said was, I believe that Ron DeSantis' campaign staff are secret Trump supporters who are intentionally nuking his campaign to help Trump. Then I thought about it and I'm like, maybe the real goal is to stop DeSantis from having teamed up with Trump in the first place, because now that relationship is beyond repair.
Yeah, it's nuked.
Yeah, and I don't really understand why it would not have been good for. I know there's that whole thing, if you have your moment in politics, you don't want to miss it. But would DeSantis have suffered from being vice president?
No.
I don't think he would. I mean, he can't be governor again, right? Isn't he term limited? So
right.
Where does he go? Vice presidency is not a bad idea, especially to gain official exposure on the national stage.
Or you give him a secretarial position in the cabinet, Secretary of Agriculture, whatever. Right.
Education. That was like one of his big deals.
Have it out for like 2 years or 4 years, and you'd still only be 46. At the time of the end of the second Trump administration, you can run in. But I think it's not a conspiracy. So you got to look at DeSantis' top 3 donors. Ken Griffin from Citadel, number 1. He's now actually conveniently stopped giving Ron money.
Yep.
But when it first started, they went all in on the super PAC. And I know the guys running that super PAC. They were always never Trumpers and Trump haters and flipped the wagon as soon as it became convenient for them. And they were the ones out there in the media saying, we are going to be the ones that save the Republican Party from Donald Trump. And I remember everybody excoriating Trump for being like, you can't make fun of Ron. You can't call him DeSanctimonious.
Which is not the best nickname, I will say.
I mean, but here's the effect, right? Whether it was the best nickname or not, Trump's strategy was to kneecap him before that guy ever got out of the gate. Yeah. And everybody in the political arena was saying, this is not going to work. And Ron literally puts less people in a room than I do if I send out one Truth Social post.
It sounds like they said if Trump gets DeSantis on the ticket, he's going to we can't beat him. There's nobody who can run against him. But nobody. And so they were like, let's go to DeSantis and offer him tons of money and tell him he's the guy and it's his path. Convince him, and then once he betrays Trump, that's it. We're done. And then they walk away and they stop giving him money.
Isn't he like number 5 now already? Like on the what do you call it? The GOP stakes. He's not even like the second guy.
I think he's number 3 in the prediction market. Okay. But you mentioned this. The donors have stopped giving him money.
They pulled out.
That was a while ago. And then he had that mass layoff. Like, they barely gave him any money at all. It's kind of crazy.
But don't worry, when he debates Gavin Newsom, who, by the way, will probably clobber him. Like, I don't like Gavin Newsom, but he's charismatic, he's smart, and he knows how to speak and debate. And that's going to be, that'll be the one debate I watch. Yeah. I won't watch any of the GOP ones, but I'll watch that one.
Look at this. Nikki Haley is in second place in the prediction market. I never would have saw that coming. I got to be honest.
She was doing well in New Hampshire last I checked.
That's
it's also hard for Ron to push back against Trump when it comes to like the social media presence, because he is supposed to be this traditional politician that was more of a quiet mind, quiet face. Yeah, like, so it's a lot harder in the social media age when everything's a meme to push back when people are saying that you're wearing high heels. How does somebody use dignity to get their way out of that, right? So you said that the people that work for him then say to Ashley Sinclair, "Oh, you're being rude for doing something like this," when that's not going to work, not in the social media age.
I mean, you'd hope that he'd lean into the fact that he's young and be like, "You crazy kids on social media with your jokes and your ideas," but instead it was just this crazy serious thing. I mean, like, he could have gone boot shopping on TikTok or on Reels or whatever, and it might have been better, but it really feels to me like the undercurrent of what's around him is looking for a fight and they're feeling insecure. And again, I actually feel like, I always say that I don't want to short the bench, right? Like, if Trump is elected, he'll be a one-term president and he could do incredible things, but we have to keep the momentum going. There has to be people after him. And so whether it's Ron DeSantis or not, we don't need it to be this crazy infighting led by people who are feeling insecure about their campaign.
Funny too, because didn't Logan Paul did the thing with Vivek and it became his biggest social media platform to push his campaign ideas? Like, Ron probably would have been better off figuring out a way to actually lean into the social media aspect of it.
And
better.
Like this picture right here.
Yeah.
Who is that?
I don't know, but like, doesn't it? You look at his boots and they're on the ground, but it does look like he's on his tippy toes.
It's just more disarming to people to laugh with them, right? Yeah. And that's the reality.
But doesn't that break his image, right? His image is supposed to be the person who institutes policy and then doesn't feel the need to have to clap back. That's what they liked about him, right? They liked the fact that he was not the reactionary of Trump, but he did end up
clapping back, and he could have been the guy that is like, "Oh, I'm so dignified, haha, I'll laugh with you."
No, but you're right. You raise a good point. Like, he could have just waited it out a hot second, been on a meteoric rise, and would have been the dude. Come 2028, whatever that math is. Instead, not only is he not the dude now, he's never going to be the dude in this generation. Like, he's 45, so maybe at 65 he could make a play like Trump did, maybe in his 70s. But right now, he's gone. This Republican Party is completely different. The people in the state of Florida have to, everybody's like, "Oh, Ron DeSantis is doing a great job in the state of Florida." He is. Yeah. But do you know the vote structure in the state of Florida? In 2022, Ron DeSantis got 4 million votes in the state of Florida. In 2022, Donald J. Trump got 5.1 million votes in the state of Florida.
In 2022 or 2020?
2020, excuse me. Right. So when the year they were both on the ticket, that's the spread in the state of Florida.
He was also losing a lot of the America First people, right? Because they were like, look, neocon. Like, they immediately smelled neocon on him anyways.
Well, the donors.
And had a lot of questions about it. So he would have had a lot of ground to make up there anyways.
Yeah. I mean, there are things that... and I remember saying this at this time a year ago, that there were things that I thought DeSantis could bring to, let's say, a debate stage and talk about really interestingly. I mean, Florida is unique in the sense that it deals with a lot of illegal immigration that's unique to that region, right? They have a lot of immigration from Cuba. They have a lot of immigration from... Oh, you good, homie?
Sorry. Ron DeSantis just his team just sent me a message for a donor event in Las Vegas where I live. I was like, do you guys even know who you're sending this stuff to anymore? Like,
Are you gonna go? Are you gonna go?
Maybe, why not? Maybe I'll go in there and go walk into
Ask
Treasure
him about
Island.
his boots.
I can ask him about his boots. The funny thing is, it's in Treasure Island, which is Phil Ruffin's place, who's Donald Trump's best friend. I find this all hilarious.
Be like 3-inch lifts or 4-inch lifts.
Just
Ryan.
take a picture next time because we were
I
trying
should,
to figure out
get
the
down
height.
there.
And look, and I was personally offended as somebody who's short. I wanted him to win the short vote.
You wanted representation.
I wanted representation.
short
I
guy,
wanted
yeah.
him to win the short vote.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.